Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I am here with Ernesto Lara today for our Influencers series. And what that's going to be focusing on is the people who have been impactful in mentoring and shaping dog professionals in our sport today. So, Ernesto, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much for having me. It's great
It
to
is
see you.
our pleasure. Great to see you too. I'm sure you have a lot to tell us about how you got to where you are in dogs. So why don't we start off at the very beginning with who was kind of early on more impactful in getting you into the sport?
Well, this is the person that shaped me, and I was very young, very young teenager, and I met Tita de la Torre, Elizabeth, and then she taught me everything, all the basics on the dogs. Also, she shaped me a lot as a person, and a
Mm.
lot of what I am or what I try to be is shaped from what I learned from her.
When you first met her, did you know that you wanted to make this a career, or how was your kind of mindset at that time?
No, not really. This dog I got like a second, like a ricochet way, was this Airedale dog that I always liked, and met this girl at the street that was about my age. She must have been 12, 13, something. Her name is Adriana La Torre. And she maybe the one that actually changed my life because she asked me about this dog. I told her it was an Airedale. I wanted to know more about it and, like do say how to take care of it and breed them, perhaps something. And he said, well, my parents breed them. And I knew the place. I used to bicycle around when I was a kid around that house because they always have animals. I stopped there for a refresher and would look at the dogs and the animals. We used to call it the zoo, my cousin and I, that I used to
Oh, that's cool.
bicycle. So when I got there, that's two things happened. Of course, I knew the place. I rang the bell and I was waiting for people to come out the door. And then in front of me, I tell this story so many times, and I think it's just, destiny, right? Something was moving. There was a big barrel in front of the fence there, of the gate. And something's moving. I kind of walk away, and then this little kid, 5 years old, with bright eyes, comes out of that. It was playing there, and there was some sawdust or something. And so he climbed on the fence right up to my eye level. He's only 5 years old. So asking me, who are you? What do you want? And that was Carlos. And when he was
Ah,
5, yeah. So anyway,
that's
followed by his
incredible.
mother, yeah. So that's how I met Tita. Then she came out and then started telling me right out the bat. She came back in her house, brought a book of terriers, and she's showing me all the differences and what is this and what is that, the different coats and all these things. And right there, it was just like, you're interested, here it is, and so
Yeah,
forth. And I said
hooked.
what I wanted to, and he said, well, nothing's going to happen with this dog if you don't trim it. And so it was, on vacation, it was the summer. And so come back on Saturday and I teach you how to pull his coat. And that's what I did. So 3 days
Uh,
later, I wasn't, pulling my dog down. And the rest is history. She
and there's
really
been a
changed
lot
my
of
life.
hair pulling since.
Yeah, and there's more to come still. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. So that was the beginning. And then how did you end up here in the States?
Well, that was after a while. I was involved with the dogs, and I always was my hobby. As it evolved, I realized, and people realized that I had a knack to trim in, and I was not bad showing them. And I started asking a lot how to do that and so forth. And it was just always a hobby. And I wanted to keep it like that for a while until I decided really that's what I wanted to do. When you're
Mm,
young, a lot of times you know exactly what you don't want to, but not exactly what
sure.
you want. So anyway, it took me a little bit of time to decide because I didn't want to make it an obligation. That's something that I love so much to make it. I have to do it instead of want to do
Yeah,
it. But then I realized that how many people are really lucky enough to do what they love, And
that's a
so I
great
went
point.
for it, and I was showing dogs and part time, helping me with my school and so forth. With train dogs, do breedings back then when there was no AI so popular. I would just do breedings in people's houses with Great Danes, bulldogs, Chihuahuas, whatever, get eaten and so forth. Anyway, all those things, go groom places and all that. So, and then little by little, I started progressing into showing dogs on my own and so forth, very young. And so that was good. Nobody wanted to do terriers, which that's what I started doing. And of course, doing that in Mexico and all these Latin American countries, you have to go to working dogs, to sporting dogs, to whatever it is, if you want to do it. And so eventually I started doing it, had a good career, did very well in Mexico, was very fortunate, won a lot with these dogs. And so that was a very good thing. Was able to have 2 times top dog in the country, many times top terror and so forth. So that was very good. So towards the last few years that I lived in Mexico, I started to come to shows in America, especially down in Texas, a little bit in California, mostly in Texas, for that circuit of Houston and San Antonio and that. And so we used to do that. And well, what happened next was that I know Gabriel, we know each other since we were 14 years old. This is before he was into terriers, yes. And he was into Great Danes. His first breed was Pointer, then he went to Great Danes. And then, he had this client that had Beagles, and then he had Boxers first, then he had Beagles when he came back to dogs after hiatus, and then hired Gabriel, then he got for Smooth Fox Terriers, and then was interested in wires. And he was a very energetic person, and Sergio Balcazar was his name. And so he started getting into wires with Rich Asudian, no less. And so he wanted somebody in Mexico that could trim and show these dogs. So then he got Gabriel to come into America. Anyway, so when I kept coming to the shows, Gabriel was already in the States. That was like, he came in 86. So after around those years, I was just coming to shows in Texas and living in California, as I said. And one time I said to him, I've never been to Montgomery, and I'm the one that originally liked the terrier, so I'd like to come with you. And so we were just talking about this. We were in San Antonio. It was like the last weekend of that circuit I think we were doing. Rich Sudian, who I had met on one of his trips coming to Mexico, showing for this Sergio Balcazar, approached us as I was talking to Gabriel. This is just so strange, how it happened. And then he said, I was just on the phone with my friend Peter Green, and then he needs an assistant, but he needs somebody that sort of can do trimming and sort of can show he doesn't have time to start from zero. So I thought you will be all right. Well, not at all, but just at least have an idea of what's a lead and what's a knife, right? And anyway, so I had no intentions. This is when I was in my late 20s. When I was 18, a couple of judges that came to Mexico with right after the big earthquake, I happened to be by chance their steward, ring steward on the weekend because I spoke a bit of English, and that was in Veracruz, and that was Al and Esme Trin that used to run the Waukesha club. They were very involved in AKC and all that. So they were very friendly, very nice. And they asked me, my interest in dogs. And I said, I want to learn. And they said, well, the person to learn is Peter Green. They got me in touch with him. And then he said, yes, I was 18 years old then. But then in my country back then, you used to do like some kind of a social service, military service when that age, otherwise you can't get your passport to leave. That was then. I think they did away with that. So anyway, he said, yes, I was about to come thanks to the trains and so forth. And then I could not leave the country. So there goes that. So, I kept on going. And now 10 years later, at least, that's when this happened in Texas. I had, no interest of changing my life, no need to leave my country and any of that. Was just doing what I was doing. And then Rick says that. And I had just had a really good year the year before, or I was having a good year in Mexico. But then I knew that the following year will be like, quiet. That's how it kind of normally happens. And I told him, if you give me a month, I talk to my clients and I'll be there for a year. And so I'm here. So almost, that
didn't happen.
That was in the early 90s. So that's how I got come to Peter Green.
Wow. I love that took like a 10-year progression, but then ended up coming full circle.
It just was meant to happen, Wow. It's funny how things like that have happened in my life.
What was that like when you first met him and you first went to live with him? How was that relationship then?
It was great. He is a wonderful person. And even now that he is kind of like slowing down, a bit quiet and so forth, you will think people have no need to like kind of keep a filter or so forth. Well, he is like that now. He tells really what he thinks, and all he thinks are good things. He's in reality a good guy, definitely. Yeah. And so he was always like that. I think he was kind of intrigued by having. I don't think he ever had somebody from Mexico come in and work, and he had no idea. course, Gabriel knew me. He sort of knew Gabriel. He told him about me. Rick had judged and come and show him. I actually, show against Rick and did very well, fared very well against him in Mexico. So they kind of knew me and they told him things about me. Thought they were good things for sure. But so anyway, I got to Philadelphia. And I was going to meet Gabriel, who somebody from Peter was going to pick us up. This is the weekend before Montgomery. We were going to go to the old Westbury shows in Long Island. That was very fancy and so forth. I didn't know any of these. I was just going to go there, whatever, but that's how we went. So, okay, I came into Philadelphia. I see somebody pushing this craze that I recognized Gabriel that I saw in Texas a few months before that. So I follow and I had no idea where to go. Okay, so I finally saw him. He said, well, wait here while I go get the rest of my luggage, watch the dogs, fine. And all of a sudden, somebody came from behind right in the curb and kind of like felt the back of my arm like that. And I like jumped out. I mean, I'm from Mexico City, and so
yeah, that doesn't.
You
ought
to
be
thing.
Very
over aware. So that really got me like, how did this happen, right? Anyway, so I go, and well, that was Peter Green feeling my arms because I was so skinny, like really skinny. I think he thought he saw me and said, this guy's not gonna cut it,
How's he gonna hold on to the dogs?
Well, yeah, he had those big wooden crates that are extra heavy. Yes. That's all he used to have. Still the times when there was not a lot of clusters, so it was a day here, a day there. So it was like moving around
lots
like crazy.
Moving and lifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so anyway, I think he thought he's not gonna make it. So anyway, that was the introduction. But he was fantastic. He used to say that he wasn't a good teacher because I think I discovered that he has an eye for a dog in general. He can break them into pieces. He knows the extreme details in the breeds, the features, and so forth. He was very famous importing dogs for people, not only terriers, for several other breeds that did very, very well in the breed, not at the time, but as produced and so forth. He has a knack for quality. I heard some fantastic stories from him of dogs that did very well and changed breeds and how he found them and how he got them and so forth. Something natural. So in the way to approach the dog was that he was just like a general figure of what the dog is, and then he goes from there. But luckily enough, I was able to like see him work firsthand, hold the dogs for him, and I've always been very curious and you see exactly how he uses his knife, his hands, and what was he approaching. And then over the work as he progresses, I will ask him questions and he wasn't lecturing or saying anything. He will say things, and I pick up a lot of that. And he learned in his turn that way when he was a kid. There was not a lot of arms on tables. So as a young kid, he started going to take care of his uncle's dogs when he was 10. He was the arm. So then the dog is happening, so you have to hold the dog and all that. So what's better way to do it? First row, right there as it happened, people talking about it and so forth. So that was just that. And in a way, it's sort of like what happened to me as well. And so that was very good. And then if we could come, I'm not saying a special dog, like a dog that came from grooming or had left after a championship, or we were going to start pulling the hair, we can trim it together to get it out fast. We said, you pull one side, I pull the other. And, I know like there was a handler called Gunter Bear that was very good. It's gone now for a while. Terrier handler was a great trimmer, and he learned from Peter exactly that way. He will trim one side and Peter the other and so forth. What better way to, then you can check on how good you're doing, or you took too much, or you still there's more to take, and things like that. Peter shaped me a lot that way. It was so funny that a lot of things that I will hear with him, see with him, or experience it with him, were a lot of things that echo from things that I learned in Mexico from Peter. And that's one thing that I thought it was peculiar in a way. They were very different. They did meet one time during the World Show in 1999. That was the first time Peter went to Mexico when with me. And anyway, he brought some dogs and we showed dogs and that, and Tita was at the show and so forth. Of course, she doesn't speak Spanish, she didn't speak English, so it was not like a meeting. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, even though they were such different people, and they have a lot of things in common. They were always down to earth. She was an extremely popular people who everybody she met and touched and talked to, she could talk to anybody. Anybody. Doesn't matter what the stature or not or whatever. She was fantastic. And so is Peter. And always, down to earth. They didn't suffer phonies, you know. Right. You can have secrets, you can be as bad as you want, but just be it, right? They wouldn't so that's how I think both of them are like that, and they're very loyal to their friends always. And so I try to be exactly that. We all have faults, whatever, but I think that's one thing that I think is kept me going very well, because
especially being impacted by two people in so different places and different upbringings that they still kind of arrived at the same conclusions, both in dogs and as humans.
Exactly. And for instance, Peter had to be a bit more political if you wanted to be, meaning the amount of people he will see and given this service he will do. But I saw him, he was not afraid to say what he thought or saying the things how it is. Of course, few people, not a lot of people experience that. You didn't want to see Peter Green mad at you because he was implacable, but which hardly ever happened. But also everybody really wanted to be his friend, because even now, if you see him and if you know him, the one thing he said, and like Andrew Brace wrote down that in a week ago or such on Facebook, like that, the last thing he said, if you need something, let me see what I can do for you. He's always like that, and he means it. Those things, I only wish I could be that way. I only wish I could emulate what I learned from him and I learned from Tita. That's for sure.
That's beautiful. So then while you were with Peter, I know you then became very close with Beth. How did that relationship start?
Great. Very rocky at first, because she is somebody that is not fussy, Beth. And all her kindness is through actions. She doesn't want to hear what you have to tell about who you think you are, your story. She's going to see it, right? And she's going to see it on your actions, even your silence or even your inaction. I think she can see a lot through that. And she's not really standoffish as many people think, but she's just totally straightforward. And she's incredibly intelligent. And as a person, people say, she's a very intelligent woman. She's a very intelligent human being, and she is amazing that way. And so learning from her was excellent, because I learned a lot of English from her. She has a great command of the language, and she's excellent, and it's very hard to have an argument with her. But I tried, because I thought, these things are that I needed to be clear. And she is excellent. I love talking to her, and I learned so much from her. And she can be like so strong and doing things. And it's funny about these dogs. All we're doing is walking dogs around the ring, and somebody's pointing at the one they like. But showing for other people, which implies a lot of time and money, it becomes a bit serious. And we have such a very few chances to do well for a dog when there's a major, where this is important or so forth. We set ourselves to certain important dog shows. That's where you really want to prove what you want to do. So little things that contribute to get to that point in the ring, like even like how you're gonna, where you're gonna place the dogs in the truck, and according to their breed. You never put like a Norwich Terrier below. Put it up there because they can breed. And so forth. If a dog is kind of like tender or whatever, put it next to the loud dogs or so forth. How to do the schedule, how to, organize that to a T. And, they ran, especially here, ran a tight ship, because in a low week, we'll show 20 dogs. In a good week, it was 40 something. Talking to her the other day, we're talking about that. And we took 77 dogs to Bucks County weekend, and she did. They did. God. I was just working there, but it was an army, and she basically, Peter would go and show the dogs, and she would run that setup too, of course, and it's a handler too. But she was very precise that way. Over 60, almost 70 dogs at Montgomery Day, only terriers.
Wow!
So that was fantastic. And imagine now the amount of people that work there and who were these people. For instance, I learned how to run rings in the circumstances like Montgomery, when you have several breeds and you do well and you have several champions, you have to go back for best of breed. Every breed starts at the same time. And so how you make it all or most of your dogs through the cuts till the end, and then you start to decide on exactly what to do. Is not easy, and sometimes a relationship with a client can be broken if you have a mistake there, because it's so important. But
Sure.
I'm not saying I'm as good, but I had the chance to be taught by Beth. Of course, they used to hire Mark Treffel to run these rings. Of course, he was an expert because he learned from working from Bob and Jane Forsyth. So he would come and say, grab your jacket, and you come in with this ring and running. And then you go to this ring and get this Bedlington. Is that class? I said, we don't have a Bedlington. Yes, you do. It was a pickup. So then there, and then, well, but I need a comb. Well, you should brought a comb, get a comb from somebody next time you bring one. And then Andrew's gonna come and get it. Okay. And then from then you go to ring 9. I think either Beth or Peter will be there with this Australian Terrier. But we don't have. Oh, yeah, we do have one, I guess. So and that happened, and it was excellent because I was there just keeping the dog collected, and the line was moving over, and right before it was time to go on the table, sure enough, there was Andrew getting the dog, and I ran to the other dog. So I must have had in my hands about a dozen dogs that I never showed. I was just, my job was to keep them bright and collected and ready. And so that was just a minor thing. But I learned that when it came my time and I had 8 specials at Montgomery, when I was on my own, I had hired somebody to run my ring. And then he came to me and he said, well, during the lunchtime, you have to decide between showing your Airedale dog, Lucas, and then or the Kerry Paris. I was just in the classes, right? But she had been winning the breed there. And I said, no, I can do that. I have 8 specials. I have to show them all. He said, no, you can't. I said, just watch me. Because it sent me and it made me lose a lot of time just hanging in the ring while they were just checking the ring for a big specialty. And I had the open bitch or the winner's bitch. So I said, you can't take me there. I'm wasting half an hour here while beautiful other dogs have been showing next door. So anyway, he quit on the point when he sent me to the next ring. I was sent into the same situation. Like, what are you doing? They're just checking numbers. I should not be here. And I said, where is what's his name? And then, he quit. so anyway, they said, okay, well, let's do it. So I ran my own rings. It wasn't easy, and it was in the middle of, I don't want to do it ever again, but it worked. So
you got it through because of that experience.
Right, exactly. And so that was one of those great things that, it's been very helpful through the years.
Oh my God. 70 dogs. I'm like still in shock at that number. I can't believe that.
And I'm not, patting it. That's exactly what it was. You will see, okay, It's time for Norwiches or Norfolk. Said Beth had recruited junior handlers the months before when the show started in the spring. You want to show Norfolk, whatever, you want to come to the show, whatever, yeah. And then out she was marching with all these girls or whoever she had to the ring, and they disappeared for an hour or so. And then, in the meantime, another team was going somewhere with Peter, getting the dogs ready. And so those things were really great. And then again, as you know very well, everybody thinks that it's all glamorous and so forth. And it's not. You will see Beth wearing a beautiful dress or suit in the garden, picking up a big wooden crate and going down to clean it because this precious dog soiled. And, she just went like that and so forth.
It has to be done.
I showed her a picture of, I used to annoy everybody at the setup because I used to go around with the camera taking stupid pictures of what was happening. And they're all very precious now. And
I'm so glad you did.
I showed some of them to her and says, I must have been working because I had my sleeves up. It was like I wasn't showing, I was working back there.
Yeah.
So those little things that, just by working with you realize those things.
It's so cool to hear those different pieces. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because, setups aren't as busy anymore. Even there's some handlers that still have a pretty big volume, and there's a few that they do have that, and they have the same thing, but it's not very common. Not all of them do that, and if they do, sometimes they may have some breeds that are it take a lot of time and grooming and preparation and so forth. But a lot of those are, dogs that are kind of easy, sort of wash them wherever you want, or not so elaborate grooming. And then they run those setups like that. But anyway, it was a great thing that I got to live it and learn it. And then again, through all the work, through all the things, Peter has won so much, and he never lost ground. He always talked to people just like another person, because that's what he is and what he knows he is. And so you learn that, you learn that saying, you won that, well, the dog won. You don't go in the ring and want anything. You don't have a good dog. Tell me whatever, of course it happens, but not really. You're gonna really big win. You have a good dog, and that's how it is.
Oh, that's so great. Well, it's really clear you were lucky to have some of the most, skilled, talented, but also, good humans in your corner and influencing in who you are. When you kind of look back at all these different experiences and these three people, what are some of the highest priorities that you try to remind yourself to keep emulating when you're in a position now of influencing and mentoring and guiding other younger people like you have?
To be nice to the dogs. To be nice to the dogs, and then to be as truthful as possible to your clients. Don't take those on false pretenses. And even though things get laxed, I remember Peter had an interview years ago before I came on Type, and then he was talking about how I was handling them. And then he'll say, well, we're no longer private handlers, because that's what he was when he came to Pennsylvania to work. He worked for the Full Force Kennel, and that was basically what he would do. But then became his own person and his own handler. And then when they used to be licensed, and they gave him an old breed license and so forth, and then he would say that in that interview, sometimes you have to show dogs that are not really what you wish to present, but you still give them the best you can, and just what it is. If they can finish, and they might take a long time or not, and so you take them. It might not precisely be the best dog, or you don't want to fool anybody. Sort of another thing that I was telling you earlier. Don't believe your own crap. And so anyway, I remember him progressing into more time and more important dogs. When he was campaigning a dog, for some reason, he went somewhere else with Beth, for instance, for Coco or something that they both show, mostly Beth. And then he will have a Norwich that he didn't have a chance to show in the group because he was showing something else. And he will win the group. And the judge will come and say, oh my God, this dog is great, and so forth. And he was a decent dog enough, good enough to win a group. But he was just that. Yeah. He will never say, yes, this is the next coming up, of the breed. He will say, yeah, well, thank you, it's a very nice dog. He never called a dog great. I mean, when you hear them say that, it really meant it. And so that's another thing that, it's also
he still prioritized his honesty about dogs over promoting his special at that time.
Otherwise, you get lost yourself. If you start believing that, this is a great dog, this is fantastic, and that doesn't mean you get cold, because they can still see the features that are important in any dog. They would say just misses, or when it's kind of half the weight, it's a nice dog, and it has something really nice, but it's lacks in movement, or when you have a beautiful dog and the tail is carriage is terrible, and it's gonna break the picture, it's gonna do it. So yeah, it'll do somebody just misses, right? So those kind of things get reflected in every step of the way the way that he treated his clients. And that was also important, because he was also always a very professional person, but not everybody was the same. And so he was very good about that, without, without losing that perspective, what was important. And I think that's really essential if you try to do this. And then again, I could repeat this all the time. I only wish I can emulate, all those talents, because they're very important.
Yeah. And, that's all you can do is just keep reminding yourself of those impacts and how they affected you, and keep doing the same.
True. It's true. Wow. Mentorship is something that's so important. And I worked for Peter for 12 years. And that was a great operation. I got the chance to meet greats in dogs through him, have dinner with them because of Peter. And I'm not a name dropper, but when I could like have a list in my mind of all these people that I saw up close and just talking, they weren't talking to me. I was just listening, right? And it was so important and so nice that little things like there was a man in Mexico that I saw, Burlington, and he was a very intelligent person, still alive, Adrian Escandon, and he would say that he would want to go get a dog from the East Coast because to import a fox terrier because the type was much better. And he said, in California, the ranges are so big, they just like to go around those big ranges. This is back in the early 80s. And then in the East Coast, they have all these indoor shows. That was back then, right? And then the dogs are just have to be true type, it's all down and back and so on. Well, this same thing that I heard when I was a kid in Mexico, in a dinner with Bill Blair that used to run the Progressive Toy Show, and he had Nigel and Bill Taylor for dinner with Peter, and he kind of on the conversation he brought up the same thing, how he used to import dogs to California, and they have to be this that they could take the strings and so forth. They wanted to be very athletic and also more as a typey dog that might not cover a lot of ground or as fast or as rangy you'd want
Flashy.
to. And so how come those things you hear somewhere in third world country and then you hear the same thing by one of the greats. But anyway, it's just fantastic. Those things are just really, really something very relevant, I think, and just priceless. I keep on going on bits that I got from those people, and they're just my treasure. Yeah.
That's so incredible. I just think that when you lay it all out like that, there's so many repetitions of these themes through different people in different places. And they kind of all come back at like pointing at like the truth of caring for the dogs and being honest with the dogs and the people and how you're comporting yourself and running your business.
Yeah, it's true.
Wonderful.
Earlier on when you asked me about mentorship, we always want to look up to the people that are cheap, the people that are older. But there's another thing I learned from them, from Peter or from Rick Chesudian, that was very close friends with Peter. He will come to Montgomery weekends and spend a week or to the garden and same thing and live here for a week or so forth, or on the shows in the spring, and it was great. He was one of the best teachers I've ever been. But he will always ask your opinion. He will have a dog walking down the mat and say, "Hey, Michael, to you, come and see, what do you think? Look at this dog. What do you think?" Or you say, "Oh, it looks beautiful." No, but what do you think? Tell me. He didn't want to miss something because, sometimes you blind yourself when you see something so often.
Right.
He always wanted to see your opinion. So maybe he would miss. And, he knew how maybe you didn't know much, but you have an eye. You can tell me what's your impression. And that was one thing that both of them did that, and so saying that, Carlos, who, I just told you earlier, I met him when he was just a kid. And of course, his parents taught him and so forth. But he started going to shows with me when he was a kid. And so, he learned a lot of things from me. But when I left Mexico, he, became a handler on his own right. He did a lot of winning. But he did a lot of seminars, gave a lot of seminars in the Kennel Club for years on handling, on trimming, and all those kind of things. And then he got involved with training different things, which you are sort of like that too. And so he gets to the mind of the dogs on their behavior and so forth. And, I learned a lot from him coming when he came to join me. And he's, a fantastic team player. He's my right hand, my best friend.
Yeah.
But he will teach you something. And the bottom line is you have to respect the dog. It's all about respecting the dog. And that's really opened a big new door for me with the dogs that I show. And, sometimes I have to put that thing in front of whatever requirement for an owner. Oh, I want him to do this. I want to do that. And I know that the dog is not up for that, at least then. And I have to say that, because we want the dog to do better. Only good owners understand that. I have lost dogs that I'm trying to time, saying, you're worrying what's happening right now. I'm trying to do this because this dog, it might be timid and so forth. We're getting him out of that. He trusted my assistant, so my assistant's gonna take him now, and he's happy.
Yep.
And that's the thing. We're, dressing them to, grooming them to do well at the end of the year, or so forth. And some of them, they just don't go for that, because that's another thing I learned. Yes, and that's another thing I learned from both Tita and Peter. This is all about trust. You cannot show a dog that really doesn't trust you. They need to trust you. Otherwise, you cannot really ask them to do things. They might do, or they go on. But when you really, when they really come out, it's because they have a good relationship with you. Same thing with your clients and so forth.
Yeah.
And so if they don't trust you as the way you're going forward, there's nowhere to go, really. And they want to put their interest in. Of course, it costs money, and they want it now and so forth. You understand that, but when you see the little progression or the little, accomplishments that the dog has day after day, nothing to do with the results, you kind of see a path where you're following. You can go and look at the results every day after a weekend, that you look, who won here, who won there, he's not winning and so forth. You don't really know how it happened, how well the dog that beat show and that, those things you have to really, that's why it's so important still that we have the dog shows, right? Because, what happens at the moment. And so that's kind of like the thing. But then again, you just need the trust. If they don't trust you, there's no way to go. And that's very important.
Because it's an interesting sport and competition when you are having teamwork with a living thing under stress, and that we have to ask to give us more, and it's not like a tennis racket.
Exactly. You just have said it really well. And it's funny because it will happen to you. It has happened to me a lot, and to everybody that does it long enough. Sometimes you think this dog might not respond well here in this situation because he hasn't done it before. But then by then it's really, close to you, and then he surprises you, and he does it because of you, and he feels so comfortable that he overcomes whatever, was a challenge. And that's so wonderful. That's just a little triumph for you, whether they even if he doesn't, take you into a wane or whatever, you just, that piece of, brightness is great. And so,
oh my God, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, the little things, really. And so that's what you say, well, this is very nice. This is very, very nice. And one of my favorite rewards as a handler is when the dog goes home, and then they tell me, he's fantastic. He got right back into the routine very well. He's very normal. He's not antsy or anything. And, that's hard to accomplish the way we do it sometimes, the amount of dogs we do when you campaign dogs like I've done. And, it's a lot of times of traveling and so forth, not a lot of time. So
sure.
Anyway, to achieve that is just wonderful. Of course, not everybody, though, not all the dogs do exactly that. But for the most part, I keep hearing that, and that's just fantastic. And then again, that's one thing when people come and work for me, that's the main thing, is the dog goes first. Even when I'm in the ring and then I switching dogs, like I'm gonna come to a ring that is the class starter and getting a dog and so forth. So I'm switching dog with my assistant. They always want to give you the bait. They always want to give you the number or the brush, whatever it is. Say, no, just give me the dog first, and then I get the dogs first. And then when they're secure, we trade that, make sure that they're fine, because there's traffic of people, maybe another dog knows
stuff's right happening, and
so you secure your dog and then do that. And all those things, those little things I've learned through my life with dogs, with both Tita and Peter. I remember Tita getting a dog that the owner left in a crate, and when you try to open them, it's a lion, right? So how to do it? It was, let's say, it was gonna be bored for a while, and then how she would open the door and then keep a lot of room, and then kind of go down onto the ground and offer them food and never pressure them. And a lot of it's not like shaking the crate so the dog goes out. Right. So you want sort of give it a chance to dog that to trust you, and
that patience.
Right. And Peter was also just like that. And he is amazing on his sweetness to dogs, and you just can't help it. And then again, I only wish I could emulate that, but that's just how it is. Like if he's sitting watching a soccer match or whatever, he always has like two often pinchers with him, just petting them and feeding them a lot, of course. And, and he does that.
As he should.
Yeah. So
that's I think the perfect thing to wrap up on is that we all are supposed to be in this because we love dogs. Like that's how it starts, is you're walking around with your Airedale and you just love your dog.
Right.
And then find a way to make a life of it. So we can't lose track of that.
It's true. During COVID, when we were going to the shows, I don't know if you had that feeling, but the judging panels weren't that good. There was only the people that were willing to do it. Then a lot of rules were relaxed. I judged that dog, judge a week, could judge the same dog the next week, and it was kind of crazy, and so forth. And I heard a lot of complaints. I really didn't want to be there because it was everything so unsafe, so unclear. But still, I was, and that's what I said. I'm just very thankful that among everybody that we are going through this, it was everybody that one way or the other suffered it. And but some people really like us had a problem with our works and with jobs, but some people were worse than us. And I said, there's artists, musicians, sports people that have no way to work, restaurant people and so forth. We only walking dogs, and you can make a living. And I'm very thankful for that, and if the bar was lower, let's be thankful that we have a bar to lower a little bit.
Bar at all.
And still making going, going to Philadelphia show last year, and then being there with no public, and like almost deserted building because the limit was so small. And that was like going to church, silent. There was hardly anything happening.
Ghost town.
Yes. And then you figure out what we do this, right? But it was just on the spirit, I believe, of keeping it going. Of course, it wasn't as competitive as it always is, and a lot of dogs weren't the numbers, name it. But still, I think the main thing was that, and trying to keep it going. And I'm so glad that I guess, so far we'll survive it. So
and I think it will keep on doing it.
That's right. Yeah, this thing that we do with a sport or a fancy, just hopefully we can keep doing it. We're lucky.
Absolutely. What a great point. Well, Ernesto, thank you so much for your time. It was so beautiful to hear your story and the progression. And I am looking forward to seeing all the people that can share about how you've impacted them during your time in dogs as well.
Well, thank you. It's always mutual. I try to learn from somebody else too. And thanks for your patience. Thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.